were there any stereotypes when he was narrating the role to you, or you read the script about how a villain should be a British villain, British man playing a villain, and or an anti-hero? So can you talk about your character Clement in the film, and what kind of physical and mental transformation was required of you for this role?
Well, interesting you use the word villain, because that's exactly what PaRanjith did not want. He did not want a villain. He wanted a human being who is, because when we talk about villain, we think about the moustache.
Yeah.
We think about, oh, I'm a villain. And he didn't want that. He was like, look, he's a human being who is, in fact, a decent man, who ends up becoming obsessed and overpowered by this desire and need to support his family and enrich his life. And like we all do as human beings, what greed, it becomes infectious. But what the interesting part is, he said, there are no villains in this piece. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, Thangalaan, Vikram, my co-star, you're different sides of the same coin. There are no redemptive characters in this thing. Everyone has got their bad points, and that's another fascinating aspect of it. So it wasn't a case of you just walk in and just, I'm going to play the baddie. I had to demonstrate levels. So you should, if I've done my job properly and the editing is good. What I mean by that is that they show those moments of vulnerability, emotional outpouring that you see, and you see his kind of sense of that he truly does care about his family, but that ends up becoming corrupted. And so it was a question of levels. It was a question of not one-dimensional character, but being a fully rounded character. And so I hope I've managed to convey that. I mean, that's what I try to do. In terms of your other question about preparation, I obviously I did my research on KGF, the Kohler Goldfields, and the colonialism. I knew aspects of it from school, because obviously I went to a British school, and also my character, an army officer in the late 1800s and etc. I didn't want to make him. I knew I could make this character your archetypal British sort of high status, regardless of levels. But I didn't want to do that. I had this idea of making him slightly rough around the edges, because in my head, you don't necessarily see this in the film or know about it. But I had this in mind that he's in the establishment, but an outsider. He's kind of in there, but he's kind of looked down upon within the establishment. So I thought that was more interesting to convey that than just doing this kind of really kind of incredibly well-spoken sort of army officer who's got this sort of like highly defined received pronunciation. I just thought that's not interesting, and I don't want to convey that, because then suddenly we go into the realms of cliche. So I thought about sort of doing something kind of very different. Then the physicality of it. This is a weird one, because Ranjith said to me, I need you to dominate the space when you're in the scene, for obvious reasons. And I had this idea I was going to put on weight. I didn't know how much weight, but I started to eat before a lot of pasta and a lot of food before I arrived in India. And then, of course, once I hit India, then I was hitting every incredible dish in Tamil Nadu, and I was just stuffing my face with all the Indian desserts and the fried fish and lemon rice, and I love okra fingers, by the way, with this in the sauce and that bit of chili in there. We could have this conversation for a long time, by the way. But I put on 1.5 stone of weight. So when you see Clement on screen, you'll see I'm very heavy set, but it gives more of a powerful presence. And I liken Clement to a bull in a field. a ball that is very calm and still until you aggravate it, and then it comes charging at you, and it, you know, a big animal. So yeah, but the tricky part, the tricky part was once I finished the film, I went home, I was stone and a half heavier, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to lose this weight. And that took me some time to lose all the weight. But I hope it works in the film. I really do.
Absolutely.